Welcome, friends, to another episode of Leadership Tidbits with Coach T. Wilson. I am your host and leadership mentor, Tywauna Wilson. If this is your first time tuning in, welcome. I'm so glad you landed on this podcast. Each and every week, I bring to you a new mentor who shares practical tips that you can use in your personal life, your career, or your business. And this week is no different. I have another amazing mentor, and our mentors come to you from all around the globe. So before we bring on our mentor, please come in. Let us know where you're coming in from so that we can welcome you in properly and share this broadcast out. You never know, somebody in your network or in your circle might benefit from hearing the leadership nuggets that will be shared tonight. So share this broadcast out. If you are a listener to the Elaborate Topics podcast, another episode dropped this week. And if you are in the laboratory and you're in leadership and you're a part of the instrument selection process, then you absolutely want to listen to this week's episode. You can find it on directimpactbroadcasting.com or your favorite podcast platform. So I'm excited. Are you excited? I hope you are, because we have an amazing mentor who's going to be giving us some leadership nuggets. So I'm super excited about it. And without further ado, let's go ahead and bring on our mentor for this week. So welcome, Sheri-ann. How are you?
I am good. Thank you so much for having me, Coach T.
Well, I'm excited to have you on. I know you have something awesome for us. And so I like to ask all of my mentors, where are you located? Because I have mentors coming from all over. So share with the audience where you are from or located. Sheri-ann?
Yes. I can hear you. I'm not sure what just happened just now.
Okay. I said, where are you coming in from?
So I am coming in from Leicester, all the way in Massachusetts.
Okay.
Yes.
So Massachusetts. Awesome. I think you are our first mentor that has been in Massachusetts. So this is cool.
Okay. I like that.
So let me share a little bit with the viewers and listeners about you. So Sheri-ann is the founder and CEO of Mclean Coaching and Consulting. She has been born and raised on the beautiful island of Jamaica and in the cool hills of St. Mary. One of her many passions is to help people be the best version of themselves. Sheri-ann always believes that there is something out there for everyone. We just at times need a little guidance in getting there. With over 8 years of leadership experience, she has consulted, became a capacity building trainer for at-risk communities, facilitated training for educators in inner city neighborhoods, led teams through change, implemented stabilization plans and programs, trained in the Leadership Institute, and built a sense of community. Sheri-ann is currently a PhD candidate for the Developmental Psychology program with Capella University. Sheri-ann enjoys spending time with her family, traveling, singing, maybe we'll hear a little bit of that later, reading, and writing books and poetry in her free time. Whoa,
yes.
Very awesome. Well, before I let you take it away, I want to welcome one of our viewers. So, hello, Nadine. Thank you for tuning in and sharing with us this evening. If you have questions along the way, please feel free to drop them in the chat and engage with us in the chat. So, I know, Sheri-ann, you have a presentation. Are you ready to take it away?
Oh, yes, I am ready.
All right. Well, I will let you take it away and I will hang tight.
Sounds good. All right. All right. So I am so excited, everyone, to talk to you guys about this particular topic, right? So, how leadership development can help you push through life. Now, I love to tell stories. So, throughout this presentation, you will see I'll insert a few slides that says story time. I love a good story. I hope that I'm going to be able to translate that to you. And I'm hoping that at the end of this session, that you'll be able to get something that you can apply to your life, that you may be able to share with someone else that they can apply to their lives, right? We're all in the journey. We're going on that journey of being, the best that we can be. And so that whatever resources, whatever knowledge that we get, if we're able to apply that to our lives, then we're right on track. So I will begin with story time, okay? I was so wrong. Now you're probably wondering, what does she mean I was so wrong? Now, my idea of leadership development and growth, it was totally off. Well, maybe a little off, maybe ish, a little bit off. So I know that we had to put work. I know I had to put work. I know that I had to invest my time. I know that I had to make sacrifices, but I did not know that it was so much. I did not know that it was so much work. And so as I grow and as I develop and I evolve in my roles and the different leadership roles that I've been a part of over the past couple of years, I've learned that what I thought it was is not what it actually is. And that brings me to one of my favorite themes. When I was studying literature in high school, there was a theme called perception versus reality. And that's one of my absolute favorite themes, because what we think something is not necessarily what it is. And so I found this amazing picture. I absolutely love this. So whether we're thinking about success, we're thinking about growth, we're thinking about development, it's not that nice straight arrow that we're thinking it is, right? So it's not like you start from one end and you're going and it's all sweet journey down the road. It's going to look crooked like the second one, right? So we're going to start off, it's going to loop a little bit. We might have to go back. We might have to pause. We're thinking that we're going straight, but then we're, veering off a little bit. And so that's what it is in reality. And over the past couple of years, I've learned that it's not going to be straight. It's not going to be a high and perfect and nice and neat and the way that I would want it to be, but it's going to be a little bit messy, right? But there's going to be a lot of value that I'm going to learn on that messy journey when I'm thinking about like growth and development. So as I started to, prepare for this session, I went on my best friends. I called Google one of my best friends, right? And so I went on there and I tried to see what others were saying about leadership development. And these were some of the stuff that I found, right? So there are activities to improve skills, abilities, confidence. There are activities to prepare current and future leaders. It's a process which expands the capacity of individuals to perform in leadership roles, how individuals grow and develop, into a capable and effective leader, right? And so these were some of the things that I saw coming out, right? So look at the different keywords that came out of all these definitions. And I put together some of the common themes. So we were seeing preparation, we were seeing growth, we were seeing process and expansion. Now, there's some level of movement happening with these common themes. There's movement happening with preparation, movement happening with growth, movement happening with process, and there's movement happening with expansion. It's not where a person is going to stay and be stuck. And so I like this picture that I found, right? If you think about the plant and growing and things like that, it's a process, right? It's going to take some level of growth. It's going to take some level of gardening. And that will transition into my next story. I told you guys, I have lots of stories for you tonight. And so think about these. And I want you to, if you have a paper or your smartphone or however you take notes, to take down these 4 points: the preparation, the growth, the process, and the expansion. So there was a time in my life, again, story time, where I thought that I was a gardener. So I was back home in Jamaica and I went to an agricultural show. And a part of that show, they had like some beautiful flowers. They were so amazing. And in my mind, I'm like, I want to have flowers like that in my garden. Now, my garden at the time, it needed a lot of work, right? There were a lot of weeds, there were broken sticks. It was just a hot mess. And so I needed to dedicate time to get it to look like that. But I was really focused on what I saw at the agricultural show. I really wanted those flowers. Like I wanted my garden to look just as beautiful. So I bought some flowers and I came home and I started to work, right? I started to pull up the weeds and started planting and added whatever fertilizer I needed to add it and tried to spruce it up a little bit. Now after I did that, as you can see on the screen, that's what my garden looked like after I did all of that hard work. Now, the thing about that is that I wanted to see the flowers now. Like I didn't want to wait and 2 weeks, 3 weeks. I want to see pretty flowers now. And so as you can see, there's not much going on right now in this picture. So I would get up every morning, I would water the garden, I would ensure that, all the weeds were removed, ensure that enough sunlight was happening, anything that was hanging over, I would remove that so that enough sunlight would get there. And so I waited and I waited and I'm like, oh boy, this is not happening the way that I want it to happen. And so I still didn't give up, even though I felt discouraged at time. And so I continued to push through. So one morning I woke up and then I saw this. And I flipped. If you guys realize that this picture is a little bit more up close because I was so amazed. It was so beautiful. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is really happening. I really did this. I was so proud of myself. I was sharing with everyone to say, oh, look at my cute little flower in the garden. And so that in itself for me was an extremely proud moment. And I'm glad that I pushed, I pressed on, I invested the time to allow something so beautiful to come out of it. What am I trying to say? Is that when you invest your time in developing your skills, when you invest your time to sharpen your skills, to make it the skills that you already have better, then you will get something beautiful. And that's your development happening. That's your leadership growing. That's your leadership moving from one level to the next. And so just like I did in this process, even though you might be discouraged at times, even though you feel like, I don't think this thing is for me, don't give up. Continue to push through because at the end of it, there's something beautiful that's going to come. There's something beautiful that you're going to be able to hold, something tangible to say that this is something that I have accomplished. There's something that maybe it is something intangible that you can say, this is something that I've accomplished because of the level of dedication, the hard work that I went through, right? So remember those things. We're thinking about the growth, the process, the preparation, and the expansion. Now, we've talked about, the plant. We've talked about, I give my story about my gardening and what I thought leadership development was and how I've learned how it really is actually for the past couple of years. Now, I like visual things, right? And so I've created this process because I believe that when it comes to leadership development, it's a process, right? It's an ongoing process. And I like this circle, this cycle, because it's an ongoing process. It's an ongoing cycle. Now, the first thing I want to say is that know who you are, okay? And there are many ways that you can know who you are, right? There are different assessments that you can take. You can have a conversation with your friends, with your spouse, with your pastors, with your coworkers, people that you value, right? So it's not you asking someone random that doesn't really know who you are, people that you value in your life to say, what do you think I'm good at? What do you think that I could work on? What do you think I would benefit from some level of development, some level of growth, right? Know who you are. Spend time knowing who you are, reflecting, looking yourself in the mirror. Look how you react to certain things. Look how you do not react to certain things. What are your likes? What are your dislikes? What are the things that make you tick? What are the things that don't make you tick? Know who you are. And once you're able to know who you are, then you're able to move along this trajectory of this cycle. So you've spent time, you know who you are, you know your likes, you know your dislikes, you know the areas that you do really, really well and the areas that not so well. You want to then create a plan. Okay. You want to create a plan to say, all right, then I know that I am really, really great at communicating, but I probably could benefit from working on my delegation skills. Okay. That's an amazing opportunity for you to pull in resources. Maybe it is that you take a leadership class. Maybe it is that you watch a few videos. Maybe you read a book. Maybe you partner with your mentor that you can work on these skills in terms of your delegation skills. Okay, so you create a plan. You write down those and realistic plans, right? Timeline for these plans. What are my timelines? Within a month, this is what I want to be able to do. Within 2 months, this is what I want to be able to do. What are the things that you want to work on? Then in line with that, you have to be intentional and open. Now, that's another part that you're like, being intentional. But in order for this plan to work, you have to be intentional. You have to be intentional to say that, okay, then I'm really going to move forward with this plan. It's not going to be like I made this beautiful plan. I even made a poster. It's on my wall and it's just there. And there's no intention behind it. And you have to be open to whatever will come with that intentionality, right? What is going to come with that? What is the feedback that's going to come with that? What is the feedback that, I don't think anything's going to come out of that. You have to be open, right? In the growth process, you have to be open to receive. The other part of it is the application piece, right? So you've spent time, you know who you are, you've created this lovely plan, you're ready to be intentional and open. You have to apply it, right? And application can be whether you're going to try it at home first, you're going to try it at work, you're going to try it in your community, at your church, wherever that platform is for you to be able to apply the skills that you've learned, apply them, right? Apply those skills. Then you need accountability. Okay. And that is where the persons that they value you value them, can be a real asset to you. Okay. They're going to hold you accountable. So Sheri-ann, you said that you're going to go through this plan. You're going to implement it at home. Are you doing it? I haven't seen anything. What's going on? Really, really holding you accountable to what you say that you are going to actually do. Because again, it's a process. And it's not saying that it's something you're going to get right away. It's not saying that you've done this a month and yes, I'm going to get it. It doesn't mean that way, right? So you remember that diagram that I showed initially where, we talk about like that line and we're thinking it's going in one direction and then it's like loopy. Right. It's going to take time. It's going to take time. And then with that accountability, we go back right to knowing who we are. Again, as I mentioned, it's a cycle. Maybe it is that through self-discovery, you found out, I probably would benefit more from, having crucial conversations. Then you go right through the process again. The thing with this process is that you have to be willing to be stretched. Right? You have to be willing to be stretched. There's a book that's written by John Maxwell. It talks about the 15 invaluable laws of growth. And one of those laws, he talks about the law of the rubber band. You have to be willing to be stretched. And if you think about the rubber band, is that when the rubber band is there, you don't really know what to do with it. Right? You're not really seeing the true potential of a rubber band if it's just lying on the table or lying on the floor. But when you pick it up, you can use it to bind your hair, tie your hair. You can use it to put a couple of pens together or poster boards or whatever it is. You can use it, but it has to be stretched. And that's when you're seeing the true potential of the rubber band, right? So you have to be willing to be stretched. You have to be willing to be pulled so that persons can really see what you're made of, the skills that are inside of you, and to show your true potential. So story time again, to walk or not to walk. So I came home one day and it's been probably about a year since when I went on a walk. So I was like, yes, I'm going to come home and do it. I'm going to do it. I came home, I got ready and I got my music. I was listening to music. I was listening to sermons and I got real pumped, ready to walk. Now about probably 3 to 5 minutes during the walk, I was like, nope, I don't think I'm going to do this. I'm too tired. I feel like I'm about to pass out. My heart was racing. I said, yep, I'm closer to home, so maybe I should just turn back and go home. Now, I stood there for quite a bit, with that internal conflict to say that should I go or should I not? I thought about I have to go around this corner and then go around that corner, and it is so far, and I don't think I'm going to make it all that way. And what if I can't make it that way? Who is going to come get me? And after a long deliberation with myself, I decided to go. Now, I walked and I walked and I walked, and I had to take breaks, and I was sweating, and I felt like I was going to pass out, thought I was going to die, but I walked, and I made it back. And when I came back, I felt good about myself. And this is my smile to say that, yay, I did it. I was like, yes, I did it. And even though along the way I had to take breaks, I had to pause, I had to, sip a little bit of water, it felt good when I came back. It felt really, really good. And so a lot of times when we're on our journey of development or developing our leadership skills, sometimes we feel like, I don't know if I want to do this anymore. This is too hard, or I don't even know what the outcome is going to be like, or will this ever work? But if we can push beyond that point and just look on what is ahead of us, the outcome, then we're able to not really focus on, okay, then I'm going to have to loop around, I'm going to have to take breaks, but more focus on what we're going to get at the end. Then we're able to push through that. Okay. So there's so many acronyms when it comes on to, the word push. And I looked a couple of few. So you have pray until something happens, persist until something happens, or, the push until something happens. But with all of these, there's this common denominator, and there's some action going on. So whether you're praying, whether you're persisting, whether you're pushing, whatever it is, there's some level of action taking place. What does that mean? With leadership development, you have to be doing something. You have to be doing something. It's not that you're going to sit down and be like, okay, someone is going to reach out to me to do this, or someone is going to connect me to that. You have to put yourself out there. You have to be willing to do something that's going to be really uncomfortable. Right? It's not going to be comfortable. It's not going to be fun, right? It's not going to be fun all the time. It's not going to be great all the time, right? If we think about like the rubber band stretching, like there's going to be tension, but again, it's going to push you and it's going to put you into an even better place than you are currently. And so I absolutely love this quote. It said, perseverance is not a long race, okay? It's many short races, one after the other. And even when I went on that walk, I was like, yes, it was a short races because I had to walk, pause, walk, pause, walk, pause. Did I not still accomplish my goal? I did. I was able to walk. It took me a longer time because normally that walk would have taken me like an hour, and it took me an hour and a half. So yes, it took me a longer time, but I still accomplished my goal, and I still felt great after that walk. Right? So it's not a long race. It's many short races, one after the other. Now, to stay in line with nature and the growth and all that fun stuff, I thought I would bring this part up, right? And I love the tree, so the tree can be any tree for you. If you like apples, then it's an apple tree. If you like mangoes, then it's a mango tree, whatever tree you want it to be. So at the root of that tree, right, it's leadership development. So those are the seeds that you're planting. You're planting seeds of leadership development. And then those seeds are pushing right through the trunk, okay? So it's going right through the trunk, and then it's branching out. And with that ability to branch out, there's so many skills. And I have 6 skills on this. There are plenty more skills that can be developed during that process, right? So we're talking about communication skills. I can tell you that the way I communicated 5 years ago is not the same way I'm communicating today. My communication skills, they have grown tremendously. And that came with a lot of planning, knowing who I was, being intentional, applying those communication skills, and having someone hold me accountable, right? Talk about confidence. Ooh, the confidence that I have now, I was not always this confident. I can tell you that. I was not always this confident. It took time. It took time for me to apply. It took time for me to be intentional, create a plan. How am I going to develop this confidence? And today, I'm not saying I'm the most confident person, but because I'm only competing with myself. Okay. And so where I was 5, 6, 7 years ago, it's not where where I am today. Creativity. We're thinking about creative skills that are going to develop when you invest yourself, when you pour into yourself, when you connect yourself to the right resources, to the right people that can help you to build and to grow and to develop. Being more assertive. Those are another set of skills that are important when it comes on to leadership. How you planting seeds of leadership development can push you into a more assertive person. Then we talk about promotion. Woo! Promotion, promotion, promotion. There are so many opportunities when you invest yourself in your leadership development, how that can open up a whole set of opportunities for promotion. I cannot tell you, like, the way that I have moved through the company that I work at, it's bizarre. And I align myself. I ensure that I was with the right people. I ensure that I learn. I ensure that I was consistently developing. I ensure that I continually pour into myself. I was talking to a couple of people last week and I said, listen, I have spent so much money on myself, and it's not to buy fancy things. Of course, fancy things are right. Don't get me wrong. Fancy things are nice, but I've invested so much on my growth and my development, whether I'm going to conferences, whether I'm buying books, whether it is that I am connecting with people. It doesn't matter the cost. I am pouring into myself so that I can be better, so I can do better, so I can be the best version of myself. So, how do you stay focused during the process? So I talked a little bit about this earlier about staying focused, don't try to focus on the process. So I know, right? Again, it goes back to the story I talk about with the walk, right? I was talking about the walk and I was like, oh boy, I don't want to do this. If I had focused on the process and left it at that, I would have turned back. I would have turned back, went home, probably come home, chill, and then probably thought to myself, I should have gone on the walk. I should have really gone on the walk. I should have never let myself talk me out of this and not go on the walk, which I'm glad that I went on the walk. So don't focus too much on the process, but focus on the outcome. What is the goal, right? So I use the example of being able to delegate, right? The end goal is that I'm going to be able to delegate more. Focus on that. The end goal is that I want to be able to get a promotion. Focus on that. The end goal is that I want to be more confident, more assertive, more creative. Focus on that. And that focusing is like the eyes are on the prize, right? Focus on that and let that propel you to push forward. Let that propel you to continue to persist, right? To continue to push into that direction that you want to go, to set yourself up for the greatness that's going to come. Pace yourself. Again, with the walk. I wish I could have just sprinted there and sprinted back. But if I did that, I definitely would have passed out. Probably someone would see me on the roadside and call an ambulance for me, right? So I had to pace myself. I had to pace myself and said, you know what? I have this level of journey to go to. I had to take it one step at a time, literally one step at a time. And I took that one step at a time, until I got there. I looped and I came back home. Take breaks where necessary. At first, when I took my first break, I felt horrible because I kept on saying, oh, normally I wouldn't take any breaks. I would just go and I'd come back. But that was a different time. And I had to remind myself about that, to say that it was a different time. And I took my break and I went there. And then celebrate the small steps. We don't do this quite often. We really don't. And it's something that I'm trying to be more intentional about. So you have to do that on this journey and this development journey of your leadership skills, your leadership growth. Celebrate those small steps. So I'm not going to give you a whole lot of next steps. Just say that step A, B, C. The first step I would suggest is that know who you are. Because once you do that, then everything else would fall into place. You can't create a plan if you don't know who you are. You can't be intentional if you don't know who you are. You can't apply if you don't know who you are. And who is going to hold you accountable when you don't know who you are, right? So know who you are. Spend time knowing who you are. And I mentioned before, whether that's through an assessment, whether that's through your peers, through your friends, persons from your church community, your other community, school, whatever that is. Spend time knowing who you are. And I'll wrap up with this amazing quote that I found from John Maxwell. The more seriously you take your growth, the more seriously people will take you. Okay? The more seriously you take your growth, the more seriously people will take you. And so they'll see that you're making the time to do this. You're making the time to read this book. You're making this time to go to a conference. You're making this time to pair yourself with a mentor. And then once they see that, they'll be like, she is really serious, or he is really serious about their growth and their development. Thank you so much.
That was awesome. I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it, Sheri-ann. That was awesome, awesome, awesome. And
Thank you.
you're right. You have to take that time to prepare and grow yourself. I love your points of knowing who you are, creating a plan, being intentional and open about it, applying with the application, as well as accountability, because we can be content seekers and we can get a bunch of information and study, but we have to apply, we have to do. But it does take accountability, because I've said this before, sometimes it's easier to be accountable to somebody else than it is to yourself. It's easier to let yourself down
Yes, absolutely.
than it is to let other people down. And I have a few more points on here, but I do want to recognize some of our viewers. So we had several people over on YouTube. They gave hearts. So Nadine gave hearts, and Ada, love what you were talking about. And life as Mishi, loved it as well. So make sure you subscribe to my YouTube channel so you can catch these shows each and every week. Accountability is important from Tony Ann. Is that your sister?
Yes.
Hi, Tony Ann. That's what I'm talking about. Support your sister. That's what it's all about. And while you are supporting your sister, my sister scientist is supporting me.
Oh, wow. Look at that.
So Lona said, yes, it's important to invest in yourself and celebrating the process. Liam said, very true. So some of the nuggets that you shared. And so, yeah, so if you all have questions for Sheri-ann or some of your takeaways, drop those in the chat. One of the things you mentioned, which is one of my favorite, the law of the rubber band, from the 15 Invaluable Laws of Growth from John Maxwell's book, is one of my absolute favorite chapters or law in that book, because sometimes we don't want to stretch. We don't want to be uncomfortable. And so we want to run around and get the big audacious outcomes, but not necessarily want to stretch and bend to be able to get those. So I love that you mentioned that. And I also love that you mentioned don't focus on the process, focus on the outcome. And I think that's important, especially as people are in school working towards their degree or certification. Sometimes you can get in the weeds of that process of going to school, going to class. I got this finance class or organic chemistry class or whatever it is, that you get so stuck on that you lose sight of the end goal. Yes. Or even, if you think about weight loss too, sometimes people get so focused on the walking. They get so focused on, I got to get up at 5 a.m. to lift weights, or the weights have increased, that they forget their end goal of whatever that was, to lose 10 pounds, to drop a dress size, or to get off of their medication, or whatever the case may be. But focusing on that outcome, I think, is critical.
Absolutely.
So I know you mentioned books and podcasting as ways for people to grow themselves. Which one is your favorite? What do you like to do to grow yourself? Is there a favorite thing that you do?
So I read. I read a lot. So right now in my room, I was looking the other day and I was like, okay, Sheri-ann, you might need to get another book stand. Because, like, literally once you step off my bed, they're like books stacked up right there because I have to have them in my reach. Like, I have to get them. I have to be able. And the funny thing, I was the same in while I was in Jamaica. Like, I half of my bed would be full of books, and I don't know. I don't know why I did that, but I felt like the closer they are to me, the better I felt. So I could be in a reach for a book and get up in the night and study. So a big part of it for me is books. Once someone tells me, oh, check out this book, I am there. I am buying the book. I'm seeing what it's about. So books definitely is one of my go-to. Conferences. I have gone to conferences, even if I'm not presenting or doing anything, I'm finding myself there. I want to learn. I want to network. I want to see what the new information is out there, what's going on. What can I learn from that? And so I take myself, I'll find some, hotel, try to find, and I'll just go. The pandemic sort of slowed that down for me a little bit. And I'm not a fan of virtual conferences. I try, I'll do it. But I like the in-person conferences. So those two, I would definitely say, the conferences and the books.
Okay. What's your favorite book?
So one of my favorite books that I learned, that I've read, Crucial Conversations. For some reason I'm forgetting the authors right now, but it's Crucial Conversations. And it was a time where I went into a role and I really needed to develop that skill, because that role that I went into, I had to have some crucial conversations. And so I wasn't feeling as confident as I would to have these conversations, and there was so much liability if I did not. So I went and I bought this book. I don't remember how I heard about the book, and I bought it, and I literally have it at my desk at work. And I'll go through it. I'll look through the points that I've highlighted, and use it if I feel like I'm going to have one of those really crucial conversations. I'll browse through and I'm like, okay, then this is how you're going to have this conversation. All right, then, you're ready. Let's go. But it's a really, 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 really good book. And then I 15 Invaluable Laws of Growth. I absolutely love that book. Like, the more I read it, I was like, yes, that's me. Yes. Good point. The whole book, I highlighted so many pointers. And as you know, the Law Firm of Ben is one of my favorites.
Those are great books, and I agree. I love both of those books. So what are your thoughts? Because I know sometimes, and I've had another mentor on this show before talk about it, but sometimes people will just go to conferences in their particular niche or career or their background. What are your thoughts about that? Should people kind of expand and learn new things, or what? Because sometimes, so I am a medical laboratory scientist by background, so very technical. Yes. And a lot of times it's easy for people to get more technical information, and they're in technical roles, and then they get promoted, which is great, right? You get promoted. Well, now you got to start managing people. People aren't technical. And so it's like, well, I went to all these conferences and I've gotten technical information, and now, oh no, help. I have people. So what are your thoughts around that, of just diversifying your portfolio or your skills and talents with different things that may or may not be related to your career or profession?
I am 100% diversify, because, and it goes back to the point that you just made, right? The technical part of it, but then you have to deal with people and manage people. So conferences that are surrounding like leadership development, that like dealing with people operations or HR related things, anything that has to do with that, then I would say, if you don't want to diverse too far, like, oh, try to go to a psychology conference or anything like that, because my background is in psychology, right? And so if it is that you don't want to branch that way, definitely something that has to do with leadership development and managing people, conferences that target that. Because again, you're going to have to manage people, you're going to have to work with people, and managing people is pretty tough. It's really, really, really tough. And so, if you're not able to navigate through that, right? It doesn't matter how skilled you are in an area. And I've seen this, like, you're so skilled in an area, but the managing part, it's not so hot. And so that caused people to drift from you. That caused people to question your credibility. And so it's having that leader to be well-rounded. So you have the technical piece, and then you have the managing people piece. That's going to make you more effective. That's going to really set you apart from one leader to the other.
Absolutely. I love that. I love it. So those of you who are out there and you're like, man, I need to just keep getting skilled in my particular background, it's okay to step outside of that box. Remember the law of the rubber band.
That's right. That's right.
So remember, step outside. And if you step outside, you probably meet some new people, learn some new skills, and then you'll be further ahead to getting to your outcome than maybe what you thought.
That's right.
Sheri-ann, I usually ask our mentors here because they see you got your plan, you like focus on the outcome and not the process. You in the books, you going to conferences, and they like, well, I know Sheri-ann probably didn't have any failures or mistakes or bad decisions or anything along the way, because they see where you are today working on your PhD, and they like, she got it all together. She couldn't possibly understand. So talk to us a little bit about a learning lesson or failure or mistake that you had on your path, and what did you learn from it?
Absolutely. I do not have it all together. I wish I did, but I do not. So one of the things that, and I spoke about a little bit about it earlier in terms of like where I am at, and the company that I work for, because I do administration work. So I'm also a community administrator. And so I've been with that company for about 6 years, and I started as a floor staff, right, a direct care staff, and I worked my way up into the leadership for that company. And so one of the things that I learned during that process is that I remember there was a lot going on. I had just transitioned into one of my my other roles, and I'm a type of person, I don't like reaching out for help. I try to do it on my own, which it does not work like that. There's an African proverb that says that, I think, if you want to go fast, go by yourself. If you want to go far, go with others, right? And so I was like, yes, I can do this by myself, and I got this and all that stuff. But then I realized that things started to fall through the cracks. And I became overwhelmed. I started to question, like, is this for me? Like, I don't want to do this. This is not for me. And then I met with my supervisor, and we had to have one of those tough conversations. And disclaimer, tough conversations need to happen. If persons are really invested in your growth and development, they're going to sit and have those tough conversations with you, because they want to see you grow. They want to see you develop, and they want to see the best you that can be. And so we had that conversation. I was so mad. I was like, I thought I was doing this, and I got this, and why are you saying all of that? But I came home and I reflect, and I sat and I reflected, and I was like, you know what? This is what I should have done. This is how I should have approached it differently. And then from that point, once I reflected and I came up with a plan, right? So that was me getting to know myself again. I came up with a plan, right? I started to be intentional with that plan. And I was like, you know what? I'm applying. When something came up from there, I started to reach out. Okay, can I get some help with this? Can this department work with me on this? And I found that I'm now able to operate in a total different realm. I feel like now I can, be more productive. I can be more effective. And I feel like I'm fulfilling the purpose that I have, and for this role, and what my intentions were. If I didn't have those tough conversations, if I didn't make that mistake, then I probably didn't even realize that. Right. Mm-hmm. And so I'm glad, looking back, I'm glad that I messed up at that point, because then it put me in a position to, learn, to apply and someone to hold me accountable and say that, you know what, this is working really well. And well, that part is not working really well. We still need to work on that. So, don't really worry about trying to have it together. Trust, we don't. It's more about progression than perfection.
Absolutely. And I think, we all have blind spots. And when somebody cares enough about us to be able to let us know when we could be stepping into an area that's not good, or, they recognize the blind spot that we have not recognized and they care enough to share that with us, I think that is huge.
Absolutely.
You hear a lot about feedback, good and bad, but when somebody cares enough about you to share it in a caring, loving, compassionate way, I think is very helpful.
Absolutely.
So you talked about, that learning lesson. Let's look at the flip side in regards to success. So what has success taught you? Because a lot of times people say, I want to be successful. I want to be successful. And they may not have even defined what success looks like for themselves.
Mm.
So, what does it look like for you and what has it taught you?
Yes. So the fun thing is that probably about a week, maybe a week ago, I was talking to a couple of ladies about having it all, right? And we have heard this term having it all, and this is what it means, and all the shenanigans. And I said that I don't believe that you can have it all, because guess what? I believe that you can walk in your purpose and what you are here to do, right? Not focusing on what other persons are doing, not focusing on what this or that or social media and they're seeing all that. What are you created to do? What is your God-given purpose? Okay. And I think once you focus on that, then success can bloom out of that. Okay. So for success for me is that I want to make an impact. I want to contribute to my society. I want to help people to be better, to see that their hidden talents, they're there. They just need a little help bringing them out, right? But again, success has taught me that you have to be grateful. That's one of the biggest things for me. So I have, about 2016, I created a jar called the gratitude jar. And it came to a time, and especially during the pandemic, it was super helpful for me because the pandemic was rough, right? It was a really, really difficult time. And so it was quick for me to say, I don't even know what came out of this year. Like, I don't even see anything that came out of it. And so each time I would put what I woke up this morning, I put it in. That's something to be grateful for. I'm not in the hospital. I put it in the jar. And at the end of the year, the 1st of January, the following year, I would go through my notes and I'll be like, this year wasn't as bad as I thought. And so for me, gratitude. It's not something that, you can take for granted. It's not something that you can overlook. Gratitude towards the people that are around you, that are supporting you, that are pushing you, just saying thank you, showing your appreciation to that person, being grateful. The other part for me is being humble. Humble. Again, I'll say that if it is that you can be so skilled in something, but if that being humble is missing, it's going to push people away. It's going to really, really push people away. So those are the two things, being grateful and being humble. And I think that's those things that really guide me. And I keep reflecting on everything that I do, every move that I'm making. I'm like, am I being grateful? Am I being humble in this moment? And that's what, for me, with success, that's what I feel like ties it home for me.
I love it. You're right. You got to be humble, and you definitely got to be grateful. I mean, for each and every day, in each and every breath. In that case, I mean, if the pandemic brought it really into reality. I mean, it was always there, but it became more real, I think. And
Yes.
so, yeah, I think those are great nuggets. And I'm happy that you shared that, because sometimes we have younger viewers or listeners that might be listening or watching the replay. And, they are thinking success of what they've seen on social media, and they're basing their success off of what they have seen. And so I think, what you mentioned, gratitude and being humble, which are things that you wouldn't see on social media. Those are things that are internal for you. So I think those were great points. And so Liam said, definitely love the gratitude. Debbie said, being humble, so important. Ada, diversify. She said that was a good one. So thank you for sharing that. And then Lona said, basically, way to represent my Jamaican sister. So, Sheri-ann, how can the viewers and the listeners and those that will be watching the replay, how can they get and stay connected with you?
So they can visit my website at mcleancoachingandconsulting.com. I'm also on Facebook at McLean Coaching and Consulting, and I'm also on Instagram at McLean Coaching and Consulting. So any one of those avenues, you can get through to me, or you can email at admin@mcleancoachingandconsulting.com.
Awesome. So if you have liked what you heard today with Sheri-ann, make sure you reach out to her. And do you work more so with businesses or individuals?
I work with both businesses and individuals.
Okay. So if you like her simplistic approach, and simple is good, because when something seems simple, it seems doable. So if you liked her approach and you need accountability, you've just been getting knowledge and sitting on it and not applying or not doing anything. You love the practical stories that Sheri-ann said tonight. And it seems like that she might be just the voice that you were waiting for. Make sure that you reach out to her at mcleancoachingandconsulting.com. And before we wrap up, remember, I told you it was going to go really, really fast. And it did.
I know.
Before we wrap up, what would be the one tidbit or nugget that you would like to leave our viewers or listeners with that they can start to take action on right away?
It ties back to that last point. Know yourself. And if you're a person of faith, then pray about it. Read your Bible. That was a big thing for me in terms of like knowing who I was and surrounding myself with the right words. There are many other tools out there. If you're not a person of faith, like I said, assessments, knowing the persons around you, but you have to know yourself. That way you're not living someone else's dream. You're not swayed by someone else, but you're walking your true path. You're going into the direction that you are supposed to be on, that you were created for, so that you can be the best version of yourself.
I love it. I think that's good. Know yourself. Be yourself, because guess what? Everybody else, they're taken. So
exactly.
Well, Sheri-ann, I really appreciate you coming and stopping by our lab today and sharing with all of our viewers and listeners. These were great nuggets. Like I always say, I always get something from every single mentor that stops by. Even if it's information that I've heard before, it's the way that each person says it. It's the way that they share their story that gives me that, I didn't think of it that way. So thank you so much for stopping in all the way from Massachusetts, right? Massachusetts?
Yes.
Yeah. All the way from Massachusetts by way of Jamaica.
Oh, yes.
To share with my audience here on the Leadership Tidbits Show.
Thank you so much for having me. It was an absolute pleasure.
Thank you. So thank you, viewers and listening audience, for tuning in to this week's episode with Miss Sheri-ann Mclean, where she shared with us practical strategies that you can use. And I'm telling you, were tips that you can start to implement right away. But if you do nothing else, the one thing she said is know yourself. When you know yourself, then you are aware of the people that are around you. You are aware of your goals. You're aware of the words that you use. You will be humble and you will be filled with gratitude, and you will define success for yourself. So if you caught the tail end of this, make sure you go back, listen to the whole episode, share it out. Don't be stingy. Somebody in your network need to hear or watch this episode. So thank you so much for tuning in. Until next week, same time, same channel, same place with another amazing mentor. Until next time, my friends, have an awesome week.